The Toyota Prius is a bit like broccoli. It's healthy, you should probably have it in your diet, but it's not very exciting and it looks kind of weird too. But what if you could take that broccoli and put it inside a candy wrapper? That's kind of what Toyota has done here. This is the 2021 Toyota Corolla Hybrid, and although it shares a drivetrain with the Prius, it wraps it in a much more appealing package. Now, this is the most efficient version of the Corolla, and today I'm going to show you what it's all about. So let's check out the exterior of the Corolla Hybrid first, and we're going to talk about how you can differentiate this from a regular Corolla. Not too many ways to do that because it's really not all that much different from a regular Corolla. You do get the blue Toyota logo. That always is a telltale sign that you're driving a hybrid Toyota. And when we come around the side here, you'll note that we have these 15-inch steel wheels with hubcaps. Those are the only wheels available because you can't get a higher trim level of the Corolla Hybrid. Of course, we have our hybrid badge over here, and when we come around the back, you're going to find that there's really not too much signifying that this is the Corolla Hybrid other than this hybrid badge here on the tailgate, and of course you have another blue Toyota logo down here, and you do have the exhaust pointing down at the road. This is not a sports car, so you're not going to have a big nice exhaust tip sticking out of the bumper. Alright, so let's step on inside the Corolla Hybrid, where there's only one trim level available. I think Toyota kind of wanted to test the markets on the Corolla Hybrid a little bit, so they just decided to offer one trim level. It's the LE trim level, so not very well equipped in terms of like the Corolla hierarchy, but that doesn't mean you don't get anything in here. It is pretty decently well equipped when you consider what Corollas used to come with back in the day. We have automatic climate control. This 8-inch touchscreen comes standard. It finally gets Android Auto and Apple CarPlay as standard, which is fantastic. It's not the best display in the world, the best infotainment, but it works pretty well, so I'm going to give Toyota pretty good marks on that. We even get the digital gauge cluster here, so the tachometer, the gas gauge and the temperature gauge are all physical, but the gauge in the middle, the speedometer, is all a screen, so you have your speed there. You also have your fuel economy and other information there. You also get automatic headlights, Toyota Safety Sense, which is standard. You get adaptive cruise control, forward collision avoidance, lane keep assist, all of that, and you don't have to pay extra for any of it. In fact, there's only one package that you can add to a Corolla Hybrid. I'm not sure why they didn't just make it standard, but for $500 you can add blind spot monitoring, which this vehicle does have. Other than that, automatic headlights as well. We don't have too much else besides. There's no leather, there's no heated seats, the seats are manual, so there's not like a ton of things that you can get on a Corolla here. And the materials in here, because this is an LE, aren't the best either. We have this sort of chintzy material here on the steering wheel and the shifter. I've driven a couple other Corollas very recently, including the XSE hatch and the Apex edition, both of which have much nicer materials than this Corolla Hybrid. Although that being said, it's not too much different than a Prius, which also doesn't have the best materials either. So it's okay, and when we get on to the price at the end of the video, you're going to see that it's pretty worth it when you consider how affordable this vehicle is. So now let's get on to the specifics of what you get on a hybrid Corolla versus a normal one. There's not too much to speak of here that's different here on the interior. The only thing you'll notice is right here ahead of the shifter, we have a button that says drive mode. Just like a Prius, I'm going to show you what these do out on the road. You have an eco mode, normal mode, and power mode. And when you only have a small amount of horsepower to deal with, power mode is going to come in handy when you want to, get somewhere in traffic. You have your traction control off button, and right here I have a button that says EV mode. If I push it, it'll shut the engine off completely and allow me to run just on the electric power alone. But since this is not a plug-in hybrid, you can really only go like 20 miles an hour or below, like for maybe like a mile at most. Really only comes in handy if, let's just say, you drop your kids off at school and you're leaving the parking lot, you push that button, you can coast away silently. Maybe you live in a neighborhood that only has about a mile between you and the front gate, to your house. You push that, you can get to your house without using any gas, or maybe go to the grocery store without using any gas as well. It's not super useful, but it is there in case you need it. Now let's get on to the cup holder index. I've driven a bunch of Corollas lately, so this car is not going to differ too greatly. We've got our 2 cup holders up here that are big enough to fit my Yeti cup. We have a decent amount of storage elsewhere. We just have this little cubby here where I can stick my phone ahead of the shifter, and we've got 2 cup holders in the back in the center armrest. These cup holders in the door are not that big. I can't fit my Yeti in here. It'll just kind of bump into the door handle. So overall, I'm going to give this car a 2 out of 5. It's just not great. I wish there was a little bit more storage. I've been in some other compact vehicles that have a little bit more storage space for your phone and things like that. The Corolla hatch actually gets a 3 out of 5 because it has additional cup holders on the rear doors. In the back of the Corolla Hybrid, we don't have any specific measurements that are different from a regular Corolla sedan, which is good. 34.8 inches of rear legroom. I've got my 2 cup holders here. And of course, we have the same issue that we have on other Corolla models, which is the door just doesn't quite open that wide, making it a little bit difficult to get back here. But you really don't lose any practicality in the back seat compared to a regular Corolla when you get the hybrid. Now, surprisingly, the Corolla Hybrid doesn't really lose any storage space compared to a regular Corolla. You still get 13.1 cubic feet back here, so the batteries don't really take up any of that. That's fantastic. It's not the biggest hybrid that you can get. Obviously, Toyota has others. You can upgrade to the Camry for a bigger sedan. The Prius obviously has the rear hatchback, and you can go for the RAV4 hybrid. But if you want the best combination of fuel economy, a good amount of storage, and a pretty decent back seat, I think the Corolla Hybrid is a really nice way to go. All right, so now let's get behind the wheel of a different sort of Corolla, one with a hybrid drivetrain. So under the hood, we have a 1.8 liter 4-cylinder engine, and that's connected to 2 electric motors with a 1.3 kilowatt hour battery. And you know, this isn't a very punchy drivetrain. It only produces 121 horsepower and 105 pound-feet of torque, all going to the front wheels. So you're not going to go anywhere very quickly in a hurry in the Corolla Hybrid. That drivetrain might sound familiar to you as well. That's because it's the exact same setup you get in a Toyota Prius. So basically what Toyota has done is they've taken the amazingly fuel-efficient drivetrain from a Prius and stuck it in a Corolla. Now, why have they done that? Well, some people don't like the way Prius looks. Yeah, me right here. I don't like the way the Prius looks. Really don't like the way it drives either. It just drives very sloppy, like very kind of all over the place. The steering is not very precise. Now this, on the other hand, drives like a Corolla. Like, the steering on the latest Corolla is actually pretty good. I think the ride comfort is really good. And although this car has some eco tires on it, it's definitely not the sportiest Corolla by any stretch. It is miles more fun to drive than a Prius. It even has a sport mode. I mean, it doesn't do much, but it does have a sport mode. The steering is really nice. I can toss this thing through a corner and I don't feel like I'm driving a roly-poly bus, so that is a very good thing. I've got a couple of drive modes here I can play around with. I've got my eco mode, normal, and power mode, just like I do in a Prius. Power mode makes a pretty sizable difference. It feels like the car gets a little more responsive. Like I said, you're not going to go anywhere in a hurry. If you drive this car very relaxed, very lackadaisical, it's very quiet, very, relying on the electric motors. If you push it a lot, you're gonna get, a good amount of engine drone, but it picks up nicely, like, the electric power, makes it at least responsive. Again, not a sports car. What you really buy this car for is the fuel economy. So let's talk about that. It's a big selling point of the Corolla Hybrid. You get 53 miles per gallon in the city, 52 on the highway, and 52 combined. This thing is stellar. When you're driving in stop and go traffic, it relies on the electric motors. You can go really slow speeds with just the electric power alone. It's amazing. The Prius, which is, this fuel economy king, only gets slightly better than the Corolla, and I think it's worth it because the Corolla Hybrid drives better. It certainly looks better on the outside, and you don't have that sort of stigma of oh, you drive a Prius. So the wins in the styling and, you know, and the drive dynamics are certainly worth it for like a very, very small trade-off in fuel economy, because this thing is still completely, like, it outmatches everything. I drove the Honda Insight a few years ago, and that's probably the closest competitor to this that's on the market right now, and I just couldn't get like high 50s or mid 50s like I can in this car driving around. Like, I could maybe get 50. This car, it's impossible to really get under 50 miles per gallon, making it just such a great option if all you want is basic transportation that gets absolutely the best fuel economy possible, and you just think the Prius is ugly. This Corolla Hybrid is great. It's fantastic. I wish Toyota would have done this years ago. So that was the 2021 Toyota Corolla Hybrid. You can only get one trim level, the LE, starts at $23,400, and the only option you need to add on is blind spot monitoring for another $500. That's a pretty good price. I kind of wish that Toyota would offer a higher trim level. I think people would be willing to pay more to get this same package, but with leather, heated seats, all of those sorts of things. But if you want the most efficient package that Toyota offers, but you just think the Prius is hideous, like I do, I think this is an amazing option. I'm really surprised Toyota didn't do this sooner, and I think with options like this, the Camry Hybrid and the RAV4 Hybrid, it's starting to make the Prius completely irrelevant. This is just so much more fun to drive than a Prius, so much more attractive than the Prius, and you have more practical options like the Camry Hybrid and the RAV4 Hybrid. Toyota is just nailing it with all of these hybrid vehicles, and the Corolla Hybrid is one I'd certainly recommend if you want the best fuel economy possible. We hope you've enjoyed this video of the 2021 Toyota Corolla Hybrid. For more videos like it, be sure to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell to be alerted of our latest videos. We also have cool content over on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok with short little videos, more of a condensed version of what you just saw here. I'll see you next time.